Guys, this is Lala Legacy, and welcome back to another episode of Cinderella Phenomenon. So let's jump right back in. And Melanie stares at me for a few moments before nodding. You're my friend, Melody, and I know that I can confide in you. I know that sometimes I am not trusting enough, but I think Melanie is still far too trusting. We only know that he has the mermaid's curse. I've read the story so many times, hoping that I can figure out some way to break his curse. I think back and realize that I had actually read the beginning of The Little Mermaid a long time ago, but I did not have the chance to finish it because I was caught by Mother. The Little Mermaid is about a mermaid who trades her voice for legs, right? Yes, she does it so she can be with her prince. Rod's voice was taken away. Ah! But I'm sure that he was given something in exchange. I've heard that the curses were derived from the original tales, but that they were twisted in some way to fit the format of a curse. I nod slowly, thoughtful. I have a strong feeling that Rod's curse is related to Viorica, but I cannot draw the connection. But still, Viorica might be the key to understanding his curse. If Rod will not divulge anything, the next best chance we have of understanding his curse might be going through Viorica. Chapter 7. Be careful what you wish for. That's right, be careful what you wish for because you might just get it. Today is the first time that I am leaving the palace on a day off. Usually I choose to stay inside. Whereas the other servants always leave to go home, I never see any reason to leave since this has always been my home. And the Marchant has never been home. Besides, it is not as if I want to return, not after that conversation we all shared last time. Thus, I have spent most of my days asking questions about Mother's reign, inquiring when and where I can. The opinions do not surprise me. I was so scared of her. The one wrong move, and she'd have you thrown in prison. The townsfolk would always wait for her to pass by before leaving their houses. She was a tyrant. The kingdom is a better place now that she's gone. There is no reason for them to lie to me. The more I hear, the more my old life makes sense to me. I now know why the king never seemed to love Mother, and why the people hated her. And the reason people looked at me with such fear. However, it has been months since I have been glared at in public. If there's one good thing that this curse did for me, it is that it allows me to travel around town without being noticed. As Viorica's shop comes into view, my thoughts shift to the reason I have left the palace in the first place. If Rod will not tell me anything, I will have to ask Viorica. She must be related in some way to his curse. I pause outside the door to the toy shop. With a deep breath, I push the door open. Welcome! The moment she sees me, her expression becomes confused. Oh, you are the princess's maid Melody, wasn't it? I nod at her. You've come in here alone before. Or you've never come in here alone before. What can I help you with? I wanted to ask you something. It is about Prince Rod. Prince Rod? Did something happen to him? Is he okay? He is fine. She sighs with relief. Then, what is it you would like to ask? I just wanted to know if you knew anything about Prince Rod's sudden muteness. Viorica stares at me for a few moments before she shakes her head. I only know what happened that it happened soon after I met my fiancé, Deckmund. What reason do you have for asking? Oh my goodness. Well, I try to think of a plausible explanation for this, and I immediately consider a Melanie. Viorica is a Melanie's best friend. Surely she would be willing to help if she knew I was doing this for a Melanie. Prince Rod has been very quiet recently. Princess Melanie has been worried sick about him, but he refuses to say anything, even to her. I have been trying to gather information that might be helpful in discerning the cause. I stare at her expectantly, hoping that my gaze holds nothing but determination. Finally, Viorica smiles. She's lucky to have a dedicated friend like you. I am still not accustomed to the fact that Melanie considers me a friend. Before she became the princess, I was her first confidant. We were like sisters. But now that she's living in the castle, we no longer have the luxury of spending so much time together. I worry about her constantly. Even around me, Em always tends to keep her problems to herself at first. She doesn't like to bother other people with them. It is hard not to agree. With the way Melanie was always smiling before, I never thought she had any problems in her life. It was only recently that I discovered that she was hiding all her loneliness and pain behind a smile. It's a relief that she's befriended someone who cares so much about her. I don't know if I can be much help, but I'll tell you what I know if it will help Melanie. To start with, I'm not exactly sure how everything changed, but it all happened so suddenly. All I know is that after the night I met Dekmund, our relationship changed. At first, he still smiled, but recently he's been avoiding me. What happened between the two of you the night you met your fiancé? Nothing. Rod and I did not meet on that day. Prince Rod wasn't there? No, but soon after what happened that night, Rod grew distant. What happened? It was a stormy night, and I was heading back home. I took the route by the riverbank because it was the shortest route. It was foolish of me. The road was slippery and full of mud. I lost my footing and fell into the water. The waves were strong, and I was certain I was going to drown. I don't remember what happened in the darkness of that water, only that when I woke up, my head was in Dekmund's lap. That was the first time we met, but not the last. He carried me home, and he came by every day as I was recovering. And then he came to visit even after I had recovered. I tried not to get my hopes up too much, because what could this nobleman see in me, a mere commoner? But I still ended up falling in love with him. You have no idea how happy I was when he said he loved me too. It was a dream come true. Of course, every girl dreams of marrying a prince. It was all in the fairy tales that I read as a child. None of that was at all related to Rod. How does this relate to his curse? You said your relationship with Rod changed after that night. What happened? Viorica sighs. I told Em and Rod about Dekmund soon after the incident. Em was happy that the two of us had fallen in love, but Rod didn't say much of anything. That's when I noticed he started growing distant, and when I realized that he had also lost his voice. He still won't tell me anything, but I figured that he was. Her voice fades, but I know that she is referring to the curse. So, Rod lost his voice shortly after Viorica met Dekmund. The mermaid's curse must have something to do with the tale. The little mermaid traded her voice for legs so that she could be with her prince. But that night, the only person who found their prince charming was Viorica. Rod's curse must have something to do with Dekmund and Viorica. He became distant with her after finding out about Dekmund. Why? Then there was the fact that he still spoke to Viorica even if he was distant. It was only when he found out about their wedding that he became so cold. I frown as I try to organize my thoughts. How did it get to be this late? I'm so sorry, Melody, but I have to close the shop now. Sorry for the story. I know it has nothing to do with Rod, but it was after that incident that he began to act strangely. I don't think I was much help, but... I shake my head. You have told me what you could. Viorica walks me to the door, opening it so that the both of us could step out onto the street together. I really hope that you're able to help Melanie and Rod. I hope so, too. Did you see Ophelia the other day? I catch sight of two noblewomen sitting on a bench together, not too far away from the toy shop. They are referring to Ophelia without her title. How disrespectful! Who would have thought a peasant like her could almost look like royalty? But her dress. As the queen, she ought to be wearing silks rather than satin. I do not know why, but I bristle at their comments. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, but the fact that they are speaking so bluntly in public means that they have little worry of being overheard. I'm still not sure what the king saw in her. Well, you know what they say about ladies lacking natural beauty. Her talents must lie in other, more persuasive areas. She must be very persuasive indeed if the king saw it worthwhile to marry her. As the two women laugh, I feel something hot begin to burn in my stomach. Viorica takes in a sharp breath beside me. Since I became a maid in the palace, Ophelia has been nothing but kind to me, a mere servant. She has all the right to flaunt her status and title, yet she remains humble. I now know that this is why everyone at the palace loves her. Uncommon women like her can only keep a man's attention for so long. I start walking towards them without thinking. Melody, I wouldn't. You have no right to say those things about the queen. The two women were clearly surprised at my interruption. Both of them glare at me. And you have no right to eavesdrop on us. Eavesdropping? Anyone could have heard you. Their mouths fall open. One of the women looks at me for a long time, then sneers suddenly, as if something has occurred to her. I thought you looked familiar. You're the crown princess's personal maid. I see you always following her around when she's in town. This is none of your business, girl. Why do you care so much for our opinions? Ah, perhaps it's because the girl idolizes the queen, thinks she might also go from rags to riches. What? Oh, you do have a point. They stand and advance toward me. Do you want the prince for yourself, girl? If a commoner can become a queen, it's not too difficult to imagine yourself as a princess, is it? How foolish! You're better off dreaming smaller dreams, girl. They laugh, and the irritation in my chest blazes into full-on anger. Is this what Ophelia has been dealing with over the past year? She is being treated so cruelly when she has done nothing but love the king. And I also ridiculed her just like this. I force myself to look at the cruel women as I move my hand to the pendant hanging around my neck. I was just as cruel as them. I barely feel Viorica's hand as she rests it against my shoulder. Melody, let it go. Her Majesty wouldn't want you to do this. But I cannot just let these two women talk about Ophelia like this. I pull away from Viorica and stand firm. The queen has a good heart. She is far more noble than either of you could ever hope to be. I think back on the times I was cruel to her. Ophelia could have easily reprimanded me for my behavior. She had the right as my stepmother, yet she has been nothing but kind to me. Ophelia never got angry at me, even despite my treatment towards her and her family. She has always treated others with kindness, even when they are cruel to her. Judging from the bitterness in your accusations, it seems like you are jealous of her. How pathetic. The other woman marches towards me, and my free hand instinctively moves to hold her hand just before her palm reaches my cheek. I will not tolerate any insults towards the queen. A soft light emanates from the pendant, and I can only stare at it in shock. I got another good deed? By defending Ophelia. The woman snatches her hand away. How dare a peasant like you talk to us, or talk that way to us? Have you no manners? I could ask you the same. What happened to yours? How dare you? Don't you know who we are, girl? I will see you pay for your impertinence. Our words have far more weight than yours ever will. I will go to the king myself and tell him about how rude you were. You can pass on that message, or I can pass on that message myself. I turn to see Rod walking towards us. his expression cold. The two noblewomen hastily curtsy. Your Highness! The noblewomen turn pale as Rod's eyes fall on them. Actually, we have an important dinner engagement. Yes, we do. The two noblewomen curtsy before quickly departing. What are you doing here without your guards? What trouble have you gotten yourself into now? We're not going to tell him. It is nothing. If you refuse to tell me what happened, I will have to assume that the noblewomen were telling the truth about you. Melody has done nothing wrong. In fact, I think Melody only did what you or Melanie would have done if you had heard, or if you had... Let me start that over. In fact, I think Melody only did what you or Melanie would have done had you heard the awful things those women were saying about your mother. What? She stood up for the queen when she didn't have to. Then why didn't you just say so? Would you have believed me? Rod drops his gaze from mine. You never gave me a chance to believe you, did you? He would have believed me? How am I to know that? Rod is like a walking contradiction. Rod glances up again, this time to look at Viorica. We shouldn't keep you from returning home, Viorica. I'll take Melody back to the palace. Viorica's eyes narrow, and she looks ready to say something, but Rod has already reached out for my hand to pull me along behind him. When we are out of sight of Viorica's shop, Rod stops, releasing my hand as he turns to face me. Do you really think I would refuse to believe you if you told me the truth? You never liked me. You have no reason to believe me. Rod sighs, running a hand through his hair. I told you that I would help you break your curse, right? That offer alone should be enough for you to know that I... Rod turns away, suddenly looking embarrassed. That I don't dislike you anymore. You are expecting me to just assume that? How would I know unless you made that absolutely clear? Well, I'm making it clear now. I understand. Anyway, thank you for standing up for my mother. It seems like you don't require my assistance in breaking your curse after all. He gestures to my necklace. Congratulations on your second good deed, Melody. Suddenly tongue-tied, I find myself looking everywhere but Rod. When I have once again gathered my senses, I turn to the road. My eyes narrow as I recognize the path we are on. This is not the way back to the palace. No, it isn't. We're going to the Marchen. Why? Because I was on my way there before I was forced to take a detour because someone was drawing attention to herself. What? But Rod ignores me, and we walk the rest of the way to the Marchen in silence. Waltz is the only person in the reception room when we enter. Prince Rod? Princess? It's a little late for the two of you to be here. I had meant to be here earlier. Is Lady Parfait here? Waltz nods. I'll go get her. Wait here. As soon as Waltz leaves us alone, Rod turns to me, his expression rigid. Rod steps closer and grabs my shoulders. Oh. I wasn't able to say so earlier because we were out in public, but you should know just how much danger you're in now, and yet you thought it was okay to go around on your own? It was my day off today. It is not unreasonable for me to want time for myself. Time to yourself? Don't you understand the meaning of be careful? Why would you do something so foolish as going out into town alone? I couldn't help but bristle at his tone. Why are you so angry? Because you're... Rod trails off and looks away. Because you're family. So you're finally acknowledging me as family. I notice his cheeks turning red. To be honest, you're less of a family member and more just important. Important? Because of all that you do for Melanie. You're important to my sister. He looks uncomfortable as he says the words, and I cannot help but marvel at his embarrassment. Why is he so embarrassed? But Rod changes the topic as he turns away from me. Why were you with Viorica? I can only think of one reason you'd speak to her. My curse. You thought you'd find out about my curse through her? But that is all the time that I have for this episode, guys. So, if you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up down below. And if you haven't already, subscribe. By subscribing, you're becoming a part of a legacy. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!